All right. Well, before we get into our regularly scheduled nonsense, we got to address the current situation that's happening in the states. Um,
Not
it
just there.
hasn't, yeah, not just there, but I mean mainly in the states due to uh, the police brutality and the murder of George Floyd, among others. Um, it really hasn't, as far as the protests and everything else go, it hasn't quite gotten to us yet. But at this point, if you don't know what's going on, then you're choosing to not know what's going on, and you're choosing to be ignorant, and frankly, you're part of the problem.
Hey,
Now, that's not to say that that's not to just point fingers and label everybody as a racist, but the whole issue here is that a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. A lot of people don't actually understand what is happening on the side of the black community. So now is I mean, I've tried to have as many conversations with as many different people from different places and different walks of life as possible, especially lately, just to kind of get their take on what's been happening. And I've gotten a lot of the same things in that it keeps coming back to right now seems to be one of the most, if not the most important times in our lives. Because, I mean, we had Kaepernick taking a knee, and that brought some attention to police brutality and obviously a lot of other things because people took it out of context and just turned it into a whole other fucking issue and missed the point almost entirely. But
definitely.
yeah, but I think what's happening right now is really actually has a chance to change a lot of people's lives. And it's long overdue, but I mean, it's good that it seems like something big is finally coming of it.
Yeah, it appears that way. I think most people have just realized that it just this arrogant kind of paternalistic view and type of behavior is just not gonna just no one's gonna stand for it anymore. It's reached this point, and thanks to social media and cell phones being prevalent in everyone's lives, we can finally see the repercussions and see like everything that's been happening in those black communities that maybe us white folks weren't 100% aware of. And now
Yeah,
there's no excuse to not kind of join what they've been talking about for fucking hundreds and thousands of years. Like you just can't ignore it anymore.
yeah. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we have another guest on the pod and an especially important guest right now because, as I said before, we tried to get as many different opinions and as many different perspectives on the situation as possible, and I felt like there's no other option, or there's no better option, personally, than a close friend of mine, somebody I consider a brother, but somebody who's black, native, and also aspiring to be a cop. So, I mean, one of the more unique perspectives that we can find.
Yeah,
He's been on the
trying to.
pod before. Some of y'all recognize him, Brooklyn Davis, my man. Appreciate you coming in to talk to us. And we had a phone call this morning about this exact same thing, and we got to talking about just our opinions on it. And we kind of came back to the same thing. I don't know if you want to speak on your side of things and how you feel about the situation.
Yeah, so just like we talked about earlier, this one kind of like hit home for me. There was a lot of like you said, a lot of events in the past where this kind of thing has happened. Like for example, the Kaepernick knee, and just so many other types of things that happened in the past where it happened, and like you said, people kind of in the moment it was all big and it was on the news, everything, but then a short time after it just kind of died down. And
Yeah,
uh
Yeah.
and like I said, this one just kind of hit home where I never really like I obviously kept up to date with everything happening between the police and the black community and the native community. But this one really got me into it where I'm like I want to go out to the protests. I want to share as much information as I can to those who don't know anything about it, and all that.
Yeah, and another thing we talked about was the results of it. Like it started off with peaceful protests, which is all well and good. You're still seeing these masses of people going out and taking a knee with their fists up and you know, peacefully protesting, just looking for justice and looking for to raise awareness and to get people's attention. So people are
Mm,
talking about it for the right reasons. Obviously, there was also the rioting and the looting and whatever else. I think there's two sides of that. Obviously, there was some of that was probably a group of people that were a little stir crazy because they've been stuck in the house because of the quarantine and might be struggling to afford to pay their bills or whatever it is and see an opportunity to go get some free shit and
mm,
took advantage of it. Kind of playing devil's advocate there, but at the same time, it might also be people who are just tired of being afraid, just tired of having to deal with this bullshit on a daily basis. And, because people weren't listening to the peaceful protests before or because of the reaction they got, now they're starting to lash out. Now they're starting to fight back. So
exactly.
I'm trying to see both sides of that. I mean, I still don't think it's okay. I don't think it's right to go around destroying businesses and doing all that because I think we missed the point of what we're trying to do here.
It,
Uh,
it,
but I get it.
I get it too. Like I think you hit it on the head where they're just fed up with everything that's happening. I think there's obviously some followers, but I think the majority, because nothing else they've tried up until this point has worked at all, not even a little bit. So I think them looting and protesting in that way, I think is just they've hit the bottom and they're just like we're not going to do anything anymore if you guys aren't going to take this seriously at all. So I think it's warranted. I know businesses are suffering. And as far as I know, they're not going into anyone's houses or any shit like that, which is good, thank God. But it's
Far
I
as
don't
we
know.
know.
Yeah, it's they're being unreasonable, but there's a reason they're being unreasonable, in my opinion.
Right,
Yeah.
and you guys all both you guys hit it like right on the head, like you said. There's like I said, combined with all the past events and even the little things like having to feel like you have to look over your shoulder every time you're driving down the street, or
Couldn't imagine.
right, feeling like you have to look over your shoulder every time you drive down the street and every time you walk into a store, so they're looking at you that kind of way, right? It's just all that stuff combined with the little stuff, and then just seeing the way that George Floyd's life was taken, just kind of some people they were fed up, like you said. If they didn't listen to like the peaceful protests and like Kaepernick's knee, what else is there to do? You know
Well, the peaceful protests weren't even working. Like it took a
E-
week to fucking arrest these guys. Like they should have been arrested in an hour.
exactly.
Like if I'm responsible for someone as a teacher or a babysitter or something and they die on my watch, I should be held accountable in some way. But these cops that are just arresting people against their will, they never have any repercussions to their actions until hopefully now moving
Yeah.
forward. But
See, my thing with that is, I mean, maybe I'm not the one to say this, but there are two different types of justice. There's legal justice and there's street justice. And street justice isn't an option in that case, and I'm not going to get into the details of what that means. Most of y'all know what that means. But if that's not an option in that case, then yeah, that should have been dealt with right away. But that's the root of the problem, right? Is that
yeah,
there's been so many bad apples in the police force, and again, obviously they're not all bad. We've said this again and again, but there's been so many people that have gotten through the screen process and just or cops, but just happen to be bad people and are able to use their power to take away lives and hurt people that don't deserve it, and they get protected. And that's another reason why Brooklyn and I were talking this morning is that you've got you're educated in the police system and how things work. And I don't know if you want to just expand on that a little bit, and just so we can get every side of the situation.
Yeah, so like I said, there's when this whole situation happened, I did try to see it from both sides, and when I look at it from my policing point of view, there are when the police job is it's a unity type of job. You need to be able to have teamwork and cohesion to be able to be a police officer, and I think that a big part of the reason that all those bad apples and the good cops aren't necessarily coming forward is because there's a sense of brotherhood, like a sense of family within the police force, and they're scared to. I want to say scared, more like
Obligated.
obligated to stay loyal to the
defend.
police
Yeah.
force. At that
Yeah.
point in the job, it becomes a us versus them mentality, and that's
Yeah.
not the kind of mentality a police officer should have.
No, I think you explained that well. And I think there's three parts to this that need to be addressed in separate kind of issues. I think part one is obviously the inherited racism that a lot of cops seem to have. But number two, I think it's the way I think they're being trained, and kind of that brotherhood, like you said, is going against their like personal morals. So I think they got to look at how they're trained, because it wasn't just like the white guy obviously killed George Floyd, but there was also two other cultures there that didn't step up at all and just sat by the officer because they had that brotherhood type thing. And then part three, I think, is some sort of power trip that I guess police officers kind of fall into. And I don't know what that's like because I'm not a cop either, but I think all those three play a part in this as much as racism on the forefront. But I think there's more to it than that.
Mm.
Yeah, my whole thing is like when Brooklyn and I were talking again this morning. How it makes sense is that go ahead.
Just because at this point there's not one, it's not a bad apple anymore. Like it's happened, I don't know how many thousand times now. Like it's like there's, in my view, I guess there's like, it's hard to find a good apple at this point. It's just like the machine of being a police officer in the state specifically. There's just something wrong with how they're either being brought up in the system, how they're being trained, or the type of people who want to be cops, or the type of people they're letting be cops.
It's two immediate red flags that come out to me is that there's clearly not enough of a screening process as far as people becoming police officers, clearly, because people are able to get through this and able to be in those positions in the first place. Second, it's the other cops around them. It's that whole thing of if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. You know, there's one guy that's clearly a racist and a bigot and whatever that just it looked like he enjoyed, killing that man. And that's far from the only example of that. And then there's other cops standing around playing lookout, making sure, somebody doesn't catch it on film most of the time. Or if they do, in that case, he just seems to be enjoying himself. He's just a shitty human being. But there's that goes back to Brooklyn's point about, if you're that guy that reports into the police officer for abusing his power, you kind of get the snitch label. You get the snitch jacket where all of a sudden backup doesn't come as quick when you need it, or different things like that, where when it comes time that you need that companionship, or later on you have this label and it's just this dark cloud hanging over you, even though you probably did the right thing from a moral standpoint.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, it
Sorry,
comes down to like you said, it cannot be an us versus them mentality. It has to be kind of like a everyone's in this together type thing, because if there are those cops in there who decide to snitch and do the good thing ethically, like you said, the backup doesn't come as fast. And I think that's a big part of the reason. Like, people don't want to lose their lives over doing the right thing,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute civilians.
Right.
Yeah.
And just back to our point earlier, I think another part of the problem is just because, like I said, I've kind of been in school learning how to be a police officer and doing the kind of things that they would do in a daily routine, right? I think a part of the problem, now keep this in mind, I haven't been to the police academy or anything like that, so it's not any formal training to become a police officer for a specific service, but it's part of the problem is the way that they train you. They train you to try to be kind of prejudiced and decide who is worth feeling threatened over and who isn't. And I was talking to Mark earlier, and we spoke about how there has to be a line from where you go up to someone, you can have your guard up, but just have a conversation with them, man.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
then once you feel more comfortable, you can let your guard down and you can go about your day. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I feel threatened, go straight to the most lethal option.
Of course. And you know why? I think a small part of this whole thing, because it's so bad in the States, is that I think a lot of cops are scared that anybody they approach could have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is a little part of the problem. So I think they are also living in fear, not as much as just normal black civilians there, but like I think the cops are approaching situations where like anyone here could have a gun, and because it's illegal here and we don't know what we're walking into. And I think that's why they have such a guard up immediately. And I think it
Mhm.
just goes downhill from there. There's no like trust in anyone anymore.
It's a combination of being in that position, and I mean, cops are human. Yeah, they have their authoritative figures. Yeah, they have weapons and procedures to protect themselves and whatever, but they're still going into potentially scary situations depending on where you're patrolling or what the case is or whatever. But more often than not, I mean, this is a human being at their work going into a potentially life-threatening situation. So you can understand why they would have their guard up. But yeah, like Brooklyn and I were talking about, is just having some sort of a conversation. I mean, no person should be afraid when they see a police officer. That's the exact opposite. You should feel like, oh, okay, there's a police officer. Okay, whatever's going on here, I should be reassured that things are safe. I'm okay. I'm protected. I mean, they swear under an oath to protect and serve, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense for somebody to see a police officer and think, oh, am I about to die? And that's been
It's
the biggest
terrifying.
thing, particularly with the black community, but people of color in general. I mean, this the biggest issue, and a lot of people. Not to say that everybody's a racist or anything like that, but it's a lot of people that either don't know or just don't pay any attention, or just choose to kind of look away from that situation because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, they choose to look away. Yeah, you said it perfectly there.
Yeah.
It's been going on forever. We've heard about it forever. This has been a long fucking time coming. And
Yeah, no.
unfortunately, people like George had to die for it. And honestly, people might die after this if we don't do enough of a change. Like, it might not be the last time. So
I mean, this is
we gotta approach
like
it.
I was saying before. This is probably the most, from a race relation standpoint, by far the most important time of our lives, and that we've gotten all these messages, and we've seen all these leaders and stuff before try to carry on the same thing, try to spread the same message, and it's gone ignored by so many people for different reasons than others. Some of them just don't believe in that. Some of them choose to look away from what's really happening because they don't want the discomfort, and some people just don't actually take the time to listen and understand what's really happening, or can't relate to it. And yeah, I mean, the two of us, a couple white kids in Canada, I mean, depending on your background, for the most part, we don't have to deal with anywhere near the same shit that the average black person in the States has to deal with, even if they're just being pulled over for what in our case might just be a speeding ticket or a busted headlight or something like that. Again, they're sitting there thinking, how do I avoid getting killed here? Like, they can't even reach for their wallet while they're being instructed to, because the cop can just go, oh, gun, and whatever else. Like, a lot of us don't have to deal with any kinds of that shit, but this is the time where we have to have those uncomfortable conversations. We got to see all these videos that are being surfaced on the internet to really understand what's happening and get some context and really thoroughly understand what's going on. And people of all races really need to have these conversations to understand what the black community is going through and what we can do to help. I mean, there's been a lot of support in these protests. It's been, the whole box of goddamn crayons, as I like to say, at these protests, right? Like,
because it's fucked up.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see the fucking pain and how fucked up it is. Like, everyone's, you can't justify it in any way.
And that's good. That's good.
Of course.
But at the same time, another thing you got to keep in mind is if some white kid, some white person or whatever, runs up to a wall and spray paints Black Lives Matter on the wall, that might not come off right. They might they might have the right intentions going into that, but then that could end up, you know, a black person could end up getting blamed for that, and the next thing you know, a cop has got them pinned to the ground or whatever. It might spread the wrong message. So we need to have conversations before we just up and react, so we can really understand what we can do to help.
I think
That's my whole thing.
I think this is like you said, it's a prime time to be able to do this stuff. I think one of the biggest things that we need to do as a society, as a community, is educate everyone. I feel that this is such a big problem because not enough people are educated. Like you said earlier, there's way too many people who are uncomfortable with having this conversation. But when it comes down to it, there's a reason that it's uncomfortable to talk about. And
because it's like because a lot of, I guess, redneck kind of white people, I hate to like point them out in this, but they don't understand it. So it's a taboo to them. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it because for some reason they have small minds and can't relate to it. So I think that's why not enough people are talking about it. And as a white dude, I gotta listen as much as possible to understand the full kind of extent of what's happening.
exactly.
And I think yeah.
And it comes down to sharing whatever you learn. I was telling Mark earlier, there's one of the biggest things that we can do as a community to try and resolve this whole situation is just teach our children. We are the generation where, the next generation is going to have such a change if everyone could get together and just teach our children about racism, about everything that's been happening wrong. And I just think like the change starts with the next generation. There's not much that we can do other than raise awareness as a generation right now. But other than raising awareness and trying to, what am I trying to say?
Just kind of move forward with better intention. Yeah,
exactly. Try to get in touch with like the police services and try to find all the good apples and try to find.
Yeah, there are good cops for sure.
Exactly.
No one's arguing that, but like, it just happens so fucking much. What would you do to like change kind of the first step in creating a better pig pen, as I like to call it, or better cops? Better cops. Like, how would you? What would be your first step as an aspiring police officer to kind of change how cops look?
So I was talking to Mark about this earlier, and it just, like I said, my biggest thing is just raising awareness. I have a 1-year-old daughter at home, and as fucked up as it sounds, I can't wait to teach her about all this. Let her know what her culture is, and let her know about everything that happened before her time. I think it'll serve as a valuable life lesson, and it'll help her get a better understanding of life itself. Now, with that being said, if I do end up becoming a police officer, what I plan to do is just raise awareness. Hold charity events, hold fundraisers, hold awareness events where even if it's just like a pickup game, we get everyone together and you get them together for one cause, and it's to raise awareness around racism. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it has to be done.
Do you mean like citizens, like getting citizens together?
Everyone, citizens, police officers, anyone who'd be willing to come,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up pickup games because, the three of us all come from a basketball background. And, I know some of the people watching kind of roll their eyes at all the sports talk and all that shit. But Dylan and I especially, we grew up hooping, right? So, no, anywhere you go and play ball, it never really mattered. Like, people don't give a shit what you look like. If you can play, you can play. So that's one of the best places where when you get on a court or you sit on the sidelines or you're in the locker room or whatever, you can have those conversations because you've got people of all different races and whatever, and there's, stereotypes are brought up, and not all stereotypes are bad, but we have these conversations and make them comfortable with each other because we're able to crack jokes and we're able to, you know, build a bond and a kinship through that. And
Right.
it's a cultural thing too, but I don't know, it's one of the most important things. If you're able to get involved in something like that where you're able to bond with other people, regardless of what they look like or who they go to bed with, or what they do for a living or whatever the fuck, it's one of those things where you're just able to let all that shit go and focus on
The
one
task.
common goal.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is too many people are closed-minded, I think. Like, just that's it. Like, they're just so set in their ways, what their parents taught them. They're just not willing to kind of broaden what they know. And we did that through basketball and music and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
a lot of people just they don't live in that world. They don't have interest in it. And they kind of remain kind of prejudiced and very, very like, I don't know. They just assume
ignorant would be the right word.
Ignorant for sure. And I think they just got to be more, because I heard literally last week, someone's like, oh, black people could be prejudiced too. They can be prejudiced too. And I was like, yeah, but they have 100 reasons to be. Like, what do you have? Why are you prejudiced? Like, you haven't had anything happen to you. So like, I think just more people got to kind of open their mind a little more and get together. Both of you said, get together more is the number one thing, I think.
The other problem is the biggest concern for me is this can't just be a big PR campaign. This can't just be a bunch of people saying, I support Kaepernick kneeling, or, I support whatever, just to get some fucking upvotes or some likes or some clicks or whatever else. Like, this has to be a step forward, and this has to be a permanent step forward.
Yeah.
I'm praying that I feel like at this point, as I was saying before, this, because of the magnitude and the gravity of the situation, it feels like this is something that's going to change the world for the better. It really does.
Hopefully.
So I'm just hoping that, there's the little part of me that thinks once these protests end, once something happens that people are, I guess, somewhat satisfied with and calm down the protests and whatever else, then everything just goes back to the drawing board and we don't make any progress that way. I'm praying that doesn't happen, but I don't think that's going to happen in this case, because it's just been way too much of an uprising. It's been way too much of a pushback for that to happen in this case. And I'm hoping that it also stays peaceful. I mean, we've had our episodes of looting and the rioting and stuff, and that seemed to calm down. I mean, there's still some negative pushback from the police or whatever in some situations. There's been a bunch of videos circulating on the internet. How much of that is actually still happening right now, I don't know, and how much of that will continue to happen throughout, tough to say. It depends on what goes on from here forward, and what it really depends on is what happens with the George Floyd murder case. The cop, I'm not going to say the cop's name, is not getting any fucking shine on our pod, but the cop is awaiting trial, I believe, and just had his bail set at like $1.5 million or something like that. So
What have bail?
I don't see
what
anybody.
ended up happening was they upped his charge to second-degree murder.
Right.
But the only problem with that is now they have another fact and issue that they have to prove, which could be good, could be bad. If they can prove that fact, good. He's going to get more years. He's going to serve more time, right? If they can't prove it, there's a possibility that he'll get off better than if it was just the third-degree murder.
So here's the point that I'm making. I'm glad you explained that. Go back to 1992, the LA riots. When the trial went through and all the cops got off, that was when the riots and a bunch of shit got destroyed and whatever. If that cop gets off in this case and is protected by the system and is found not guilty or whatever, it's going to be bad.
It's going to be real bad.
Really, really bad.
This is the chance to fucking hold someone accountable for once.
It cannot go that way.
It never goes that way. So let's Like, let's fucking finally seek justice in something for once.
But that's what I'm saying. This is a similar situation. I mean, this is a broader spectrum as far as the people involved, because this has become
Because of social
all of
media.
America and
Yeah,
beyond
yeah.
that. Yeah. And we didn't have social media when, I mean, there was tapes of when Rodney King was beat to death by those cops and whatever. Like, you could see it. It's just as gut wrenching as watching, what happened to George Floyd. But there was protests at the time, and I believe it was peaceful at the time. It was just when the trial hit and they were found not guilty was when shit got really bad. So when you have this many people on top of Emperor Trump and all his bullshit, I mean,
Well, yeah.
if he's found not guilty, we're not going to make any progress.
Well, that just goes back to what we said before, like peaceful.
I hope I'm wrong about that.
Peaceful protests have never worked. So, like, this has to be.
They've worked, just not as much as they should have.
This has to be all for something. I guess that's a better way to say it. And yeah, I hate that.
Sorry, something permanent.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, B.
Like you said, Mark, I do see this as being a kind of like chance to step forward. And as fucked up as it is to say, I do think that in order for us to take steps forward in such heavily looked at topics such as racism, something bad needs to happen to be able to have something good happen. Like you look back at the residential schools, people didn't think that taking natives out of their homes and being racist to the natives was not okay until the residential schools happened. And then people were like, oh, wait a second, that's probably not okay.
Yeah, because they were hiding how fucked up they were being treated for so long. And it's still at a point now where a lot of people don't even know about it. I mean, it's been a prominent part of our history in Canada, obviously, but a lot of people still don't know the full extent of how poorly, the Native kids were treated in those, or the Native community as a whole have been treated in the residential schools, and even how they are now. I mean, it's one of those things that people don't talk about, and this could be another opportunity for that to be another part of the discussion, along with the Japanese internment camps and how Asians have been treated by non-Asian people, and so on and so forth, and how Hispanics are treated and how Black people are treated and everything else. This can be a part of an actual worldwide discussion, which seems to be the goal here.
Should be, yeah. I know I saw a reporter the other day pull over some like protesters, and she's like, why are you guys so protesting? Like, they arrested them. And they're like, this is fucking way bigger than that, dude. Like, that's one video of an egregious act and gross use of justice. There's millions of other instances. So they're not just going to stop there. They want more officers. We want more kind of officers prosecuted for.
We want people held accountable, not just police officers, but everybody. We want the people that are ignorant to be held accountable and to learn to educate themselves and have those uncomfortable conversations. We want bad police officers to be held accountable for their part, and for good police officers to be held accountable or credited for being good cops.
For being good. Yeah.
Everybody to have their voices heard.
I think that's a part of the solution that we can probably drive forward more. I remember the other day, my mom posted something on Facebook, and she was like, oh, look, the NRP just stopped by and played basketball with my son just on the streets, and he was on duty and everything, and yeah, like I said, that's a really, really good thing for the police to be able to do. Or I don't know if you guys seen the video of I forget which service it was, but it was the sergeant of the station. He was saying like that cop doesn't represent us, and we'll go marching with you guys today to show you that. I think that not enough of those good cops are brought to attention, and I think that's something that we need to start pushing for.
Another situation similar to that, and you were talking about community events and stuff like that. It does so much for the kids in the next generation too. Like my dad and I went to a hockey game, and we had my brothers and some kids and stuff. It was like some little kids, and it was a hockey alumni game. So it was a bunch of old former NHL players against a bunch of police officers in the community, just just a little fundraiser and stuff for, I forget what it was for, but it was a fundraiser event. We just got to watch a bunch of old fogies play hockey, against a bunch of cops. But the police officers were going around, taking pictures with people and talking to people, and these little kids were running up to the cops, like excited to see them. And when
Yeah.
you think about that in comparison to grown adult people having to be afraid of cops, like it's just, I don't. It's sad to see that, and then such a beautiful thing to see little kids like see a cop, like, oh my god, I gotta go see him. Like it's just,
And it's
well,
unfortunate too because you think about, like you said, the grown people who have to watch over their shoulder whenever they're doing any kind of daily activity. They go home and they have kids, and they have to tell their kids like, okay, when you grow up, you have to watch it back. And
Yeah.
it's sad that they just have to go home and kind of live out that life,
Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
like when they're kids, they see them as kind of heroes, and then when they get to a certain age, they have to fear them in a way, and it's this weird kind of paradigm thing where the kind of it shifts a little bit, and then now you have to be scared of cops all of a sudden because they might beat the shit out of you. Like it shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be that way. You should always have that. I want to be a cop when I grow up, if you want to, because of when I was a kid, this cop came and showed me love or whatever. That's the
yeah,
way it should be.
exactly. Like
They're not
the
looked
kid,
at. The problem is they're not looked at heroes anymore because of tapes like this and because of kind of shit like this.
yeah, because it's
When they,
tainted by shitty people who happen to get the
yeah,
same job for the wrong reasons.
yeah,
These little kids are seeing police officers and firefighters and uh, medical personnel as they should be seeing. They should be seeing them as heroes. They should see them as role models and community leaders and stuff like that. Like that's how you're supposed to see these people. But it's tainted by shit like that. And it just sucks. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Another thing, what day is it today? It's June 8th,
9th.
June 9th. Okay, so we're 10 days away from Juneteenth, which I know everybody doesn't know about, but that is Freedom Day, Jubilee Day. It's literally the celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation. That's a lot of shins. It's celebrating the abolishment of slavery. It's literally celebrating Black freedom. I'm assuming these protests are probably going to go well beyond that at this point, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping that day is a celebration. I'm hoping that the people protesting, the people supporting the protest recognize that and celebrate together, because all these people protesting, celebrating Juneteenth, celebrating freedom properly in a peaceful way could just make it that much better. I'm hoping nothing atrocious happens between now and then or after. But if we get to that point and people are celebrating each other, then I think that'll go a long way too.
It'll give it some more steam. Give it a
Yeah.
little more oomph, a little more zhuzh.
A little more sauce.
It'll be good. It'll be good. That's a good look. Well, yeah. What do you think? What's your opinion on the looting, Brooklyn?
I was talking to Mark about this earlier. So yes, like I said earlier, combined with all the little things such as having that cop look at you in a certain way, or going into the store having the clerk look at you a certain way, combined with that, and then the things that people see on the internet about like how Black people are being treated, that with what happened to George Floyd was kind of like the spilling point. It was like the boiling point, and everything just spilt over when they seen how George Floyd was treated. I think that the rioting and looting was a big reaction to all of that. And like it's kind of hard to say, because I agree with the rioting. Like I said, people have tried peaceful protesting. They've tried just about everything there is to try, and nothing has worked. So really what the rioting is just a cry for help, to be able to say, hey, there's something actually wrong and we need you guys to start paying attention.
Yeah.
you know. Now, like you said, Mark, there are definitely people out there who seen this as an opportunity and was like, oh shit, my rent's due.
Yeah,
There's a full TV, you know?
it's
and
true.
so
It's true.
Yeah.
and so like the looting and like breaking, like, okay, breaking into the businesses and stealing stuff from them, I'm not on board with. I don't agree with anything like that. But the actual rioting and expressing that cry for help, I'm all for.
I mean, it's the whole thing of basically, in a nutshell, it's our voices need to be heard, and y'all don't want to fucking listen.
Yeah.
So, like,
Mhm.
what the fuck do we have to do for you guys to finally understand that we're sick of this shit?
Absolutely.
Right.
It's really that simple, and it's also as simple as, this is a harsher version of what I explained before, but the people being ignorant, the people. I mean, I'm not expecting everybody to go out there and protest. I'm not expecting everybody to kneel at the anthem or stand there with your fists up, or I'm not expecting everybody to do that. But it's at a point now where it's, from the black community's point of view, it's you're either with us or you're against us. It's really that simple at this point.
Yeah. Rightfully so. Like, how can they look at it any different?
I mean,
Like,
they've
it's,
felt like that for generations, but
yeah.
now it's really, now we're doing something. Now we're gathering masses of people. It's not just masses of black people. Now it's, everybody. We want everybody. We want you all to understand. We're willing to hear. We're willing to hear your side of it. We're willing to teach you if you're willing to learn. This
Yeah.
Exactly.
isn't this isn't fuck white people. This isn't, fuck everybody that's not black. It's everybody listen.
Yeah. And I think the riots are, like you said, a cry for help in a way. Like,
Yeah.
there's no more being like reasonable. There's a quote by a guy named Bernard Shaw that was reiterated by Nipsey Hussle before he died. And it was like, the reasonable man adapts to the world around him, which is what we tried. And then the unreasonable man persists to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So to get any progress, we have to be somewhat unreasonable right now to invoke kind of any kind of change. And the riots and protesting is kind of the forefront of that happening. And I think it is absolutely warranted right now.
Speaking of Nip, I mean, before he died, he was doing a bunch of work, trying to make connections with their communities, with the gangs, with everybody else, and the police officers and their departments. He was doing a lot of work to bridge that gap as
Bridge the
well.
gap, yeah.
Yeah,
Ahead of his time.
I mean,
So
it's time for people to shut the fuck up and listen. It's really that simple.
shut the fuck up and dribble. Right, LeBron? So there was, I don't know if you know anything about CrossFit, but it pretty much died this week as a whole because the guy who made it up, his name's Greg Glassman. He tweeted, you know how COVID is like in all caps and that's got the dash and that says 19?
Yeah.
He tweeted Floyd 19. And
Wow.
people fucking tore into him. And then when he replied to that, all the hate he got from that, all the backlash, he didn't even address what he did. And he just said, we need to be more concerned about, I don't know, some bullshit World Health Organization thing. And then so Reebok pulled their sponsorship out. All the athletes said they're not doing it anymore. And like, it just completely died this week because of this fucking idiot. No one wants like any affiliation with him at all. And now the word CrossFit is going to be dead.
Okay.
Because of everything that's happened.
Now,
He was on the wrong side of it.
the initial reaction to that is, yeah, that's fucked up. What we should be doing is taking a second and try to figure out what context is. Because what happened last week or the other day, whatever, with Drew Brees, when he made the comments about, I would never disrespect the flag, when an interviewer was asking him about the.
He's trying to tell people when to protest.
Yeah.
That's
he's, and people immediately were out for his head, and then people had phone conversations or whatever else and started to understand. He apologized, came forward, explained what he meant, and tough to say whether that was 100% genuine apology or not. I like to think it was, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But this is the issue, right? Like, if we go so far as to everybody react immediately and knee jerk and cancel everybody, then we're still missing the point.
Of
We
course.
gotta have conversations with these people. So with CrossFit dude, whatever the fuck he's on with what he said, the thing to do here is to figure out context of what he's saying and have a conversation about it.
Well, allegedly there was recordings of him saying like he doesn't mourn for George Floyd and all that stuff that were on Zoom calls and stuff. And then there was like emails that he sent to people, and you could see that it was clearly his email saying, out of all the people who kind of dropped out, that he would like kind of attack them and said like, you're losing your mental health because of this COVID thing. You're making a big mistake, blah, blah, blah. Like he wasn't empathetic towards the situation at all in any way.
Then yeah, he's clearly not part of the solution.
No.
Now, to be clear, I get that. I don't mean to cut you off, B. I get that there's the concern of the virus. Obviously, we're still under quarantine. Obviously, there's a massive global pandemic that people have to worry about, and there's these large gatherings of people protesting, whatever. As far as I can tell, they're being as safe as they possibly can. But reality is, the protests are going towards a much bigger issue than this virus is. Some people might disagree with that, but those people aren't listening. Those people aren't getting what's really happening right now, what really needs to come of this.
Yeah.
I mean, be safe, keep clean, wash your hands, wear your mask, do what you got to do. But there's louder voices that need to be heard.
And like you said, it's just about getting that voice out there. I'm really happy to see that there is, like you said, the full box of cranes in this, but because the cry for help, our voice hasn't been heard. We need other races. We need the entire world to be able to step up and help us. And even if you aren't, like you said, attending the riots or the protests, there's other things that you can do where you stay at home and stay safe. Like I, for example, probably won't be attending a protest. I would like to. I'd want to go out, but just with the virus out there and my daughter at home, there's no way I'm going out, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is like I have a friend who she's also Black. She has a book about the inequality for Black people in Canada. I'm gonna borrow that book from her, read up on it, and just spread all the information that I can to the people who I know can make a difference.
Learn to teach, man. Learn to teach. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
I mean, learn what you don't know and teach others what they don't know, and hopefully we're all better for it.
It's crazy how many like white dudes I see, or people in general, that are like automatically on defense, and they're like the same people who say like all lives matter and stuff instead of Black Lives Matter. It's like they're feeling like they're attacked in some fucking weird way, and I think those are the people we got to educate kind of the most, because they're
missing the point. They're missing the point.
Missing the point.
We're not pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, you say all lives matter, you're a racist." It's like, no,
it's fucking
understand
wild.
what we're trying to say, or what the Black community is trying to say with this.
Right, with the Black Lives Matter movement, it has nothing to do with discriminating against the other races.
Nothing.
Right.
It's literally just, okay, yes, we understand that all lives matter. Everyone is equal and everything, but we are the ones who actually need help right now.
Yeah. All lives can't matter until Black lives also matter.
Exactly.
Like it's not equal right now. From what I've seen. So
another thing we got to keep in mind, I mean, you made a good point about, community events and stuff. We talked a lot about that, but the other thing is we got to figure out other ways that we can help. Like, is it putting together fundraisers to build the Black dollar? Is it something about recovering Black-owned businesses? Is it, are there certain people that we need to talk to and get access to and learn from? Is there certain experiences that people don't have that they should have, places we should go, different things like that? And that's why we need to actually have a conversation. And ironically, as much as I've bitched and complained about everybody's constantly got their phone out and filming every fucking thing and playing victim or whatever else, it's done a lot of good lately. it's done a lot of good, and I think it's going to continue to do a lot of good because it's exposing the bullshit that's happening out there, but at the same time, it's showing a lot of good. We've seen a lot of the, you know, the tear gas and the riot uh, shields and the rubber bullets and all this shit that's happening and people being pepper sprayed and stuff. But at the same time, we've seen where police officers will walk up to a rally of people and just have a pep talk with them and say, listen, what you're doing is good right now. Do not stop protesting. You're fighting a good fight and whatever, but we're not all bad people. We're here with you. There's police officers kneeling and raising their fists with the protesters. There's people are having conversations. People are starting to share a common goal. And
Yeah.
again, that's what this is about.
Let's get it something straight. Like social media and the cameras and stuff, they're not changing how they're just, all they're doing is just really exposing what's already been happening. Like nothing, you don't have to walk on eggshells now. Just be your fucking self. And if you're a piece of shit, you're going to get caught being a piece of shit. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is. It's just exposing what's already happening or exposing people who aren't that great.
Yeah. And Dylan, we talked about this before. There's people that we know that don't have a racist bone in the body are good people, but will get uncomfortable when a black person walks into the room. Just as like this weird innate thing that shouldn't happen. But that's
the same people that I see.
That's part of the issue.
They're the same people that I see like tweeting the most about Black Lives Matter and on the forefront with Instagram and stuff, but they're the same ones I've seen in a room with black people who do get uncomfortable. And I'm not calling them out and I don't want them to make them look bad, but like that is an issue too. Like, would you be doing it if the rest of the world wasn't doing it?
It's because they're fighting against white guilt and not knowing how to properly do it. They're just doing what they think is agreeable with everybody else instead of thinking for themselves and saying, you know, who can I learn from? Who can I talk to? How can I actually help? Like, these aren't bad people.
No, that's not. I wasn't trying to make them look bad, but it's just fickle.
No.
Almost fickle in a way.
I agree with what you're saying.
Maybe they need to get more.
It's ignorance.
Educated.
It's ignorance.
Yeah. Or like, so since the CrossFit thing happened, one of the gyms I work at is a CrossFit gym, and we kind of disaffiliated. Sent this big post on, and that gym's very diverse and very multicultural, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. But we sent this big post out, heartfelt post saying like, we're behind our community. We dropped the CrossFit name, blah, blah, blah. And because we didn't put hashtag Black Lives Matter at the end, we got like a ton of good comments and then a ton of really kind of negative comments towards the bottom. And by a ton, I mean three. But they were really mad that we didn't use, people were mad that we didn't use the hashtag. And that I think that's missing the point also. Like if we're
right.
Like I think that's going too far almost one way.
You're not doing the exact same thing as everybody else is doing on the internet. It's like
it's just like Mark was saying, how people are really quick to react to the situation as opposed to just looking at the message for what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You could put the most progressive, beautifully empathetic, heartfelt, fucking insightful message about this whole movement, but because we didn't put hashtag Black Lives Matter, you just get attacked because
exactly. Like there was
that's not going to help anything either.
There was a statement actually recently released by the Niagara Regional Chief of Police, and in the statement he spoke about the thing happening like with George Floyd and how they're working within the police service to be able to create change within themselves. But close to the end, he said something about how all lives matter or something like that. And there was a bunch of people on the internet who took it the wrong way. And they were like, oh, all lives matter. What's he trying to say by that?
Right. Well, the problem is, part of the problem, we haven't went through anything quite like this to this extent as a whole. So there's not really a right or wrong thing you can do besides like, what you know is right, but in terms of what you say and what you post, it's, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of all over the place right now. Like there's no, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Seems that there's no playbook. There's no rule book. There's nothing. We haven't done this before. So there's nothing like, people are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Even if they mean well, like it's going to come off wrong or vice versa.
In a way, I kind of see it as two sides of the coin. there's like I'm obviously black, so I have a lot of family members who have actively made posts about, you know, their experiences with being black and about how this movement's affecting them and everything, what they think people should be doing. And there's just two kinds of posts. There's those posts which people look at and they're like, oh, I feel for you, thank you for sharing this and that. And then there's people who post and, like you said, they just try to send a good message talking about, I'll do everything that I can to help the movement and take a step forward. But then people kind of look at that post and they heavily criticize it because they're not someone
Yeah.
who has experienced it,
Yeah.
you know.
Even like Lil Wayne, I think he's had experiences with good white cops and bad white cops. Like he said, I saw something he put, like how this white cop saved his life and a bunch of other cops who weren't white just walked right over him. So like there are people spreading both sides of being a cop, like good stories about cops and bad stories. And I think that's a good thing that the community needs as well. So there is some trust in cops, especially right now. So I think that's a good on his part and people like him, even though he makes shitty music. But
I wasn't gonna say it, but
I've been.
I was biting
I
my tongue.
swear. I remember before this happened. I think from like podcast 7 or 8 to 16, somehow cops got brought up, and I said I hate cops on every one of them, and everyone's like, "Why are you so hard on cops?" And this is fucking why. This is exactly why I was saying that whole time, because they make me look bad because it's always a white cop beating the shit out of a black cop for no reason. So and I haven't had any good run-ins with cops either. So I think that's another issue of mine, but I don't know. That's why I was saying it all those times. Now you guys fucking understand.
I think a large part of it goes into the like you said, the training process and the screening process, finding people who are actually good people. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are good. Like I have a good buddy of mine. I've been friends with him for almost well over a decade now. And I know that he's a good guy. You know, he does good things just to do good things.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a deeper screening process to be able to find and filter through people to find those good people, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I know in the last few years, there's been a kind of a pivot in the types of people that they're trying to hire, like that cops are trying to bring on the force, like more diverse cultures, more women, just so it's not all fucking white dudes all the time. So that I think was a step, but obviously more needs to be done.
I remember learning about it in school. One of the more recent steps they took, like you said, was just trying to hire more diverse people, but also trying to stray away from those people with perfect lives per se, you know. Keep in mind, they don't want to hire someone who's had like a 10-year criminal record, but they are looking for people who don't have a perfect life. You know, they were brought up in a kind of shitty background and they kind of built their own path. They want people who build a lives for themselves and not haven't had it easy all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. Just step.
I mean, shit, man, that's pretty much all I got on that. I mean, I don't know how much more we can say. I mean, pretty much damn near goes without saying at this point, but obviously, yes, Black Lives Matter, and yes, we are behind the black community.
Tenfold.
As far as anybody watching this or listening that falls under that demographic, there's a lot of people close to us. You know, if we haven't talked already, you know where to find me. You know where to find Dylan. You know where to find Brooklyn. I mean, hit us in the comments, man, if you want to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
You know, or even if on a personal level, fuck, man, I'm a phone call away. Most of you got my number. I still got some people I got to reach out to and just get their opinions on it and just, you know.
Did you
make sure everybody's good? But
did you see the guy in Toronto today?
Guy in Toronto? No.
Oh my god! I think it was Toronto. I think it was here in Canada. This guy came to like the rally or protest in all blackface. and black arms and everything. And he didn't look black. He looked like fucking Nightcrawler.
Oh wait, yeah, I saw the
Like-
picture.
The cops had like, "What are you doing?" And they just arrested him right away. But I think it was more for his safety that they arrested him. But yeah, he looked. I don't know what he was just smiling. He's like, "What am I doing wrong?" And
I wonder if maybe he was like trying to bait
I don't know what he was
a
doing.
cop into doing something to him, and then it turns out that he's a white guy or whatever, and it's like, oh, rope a dope. I mean, I can't see that ending well for him in any way, but
No, he didn't.
I don't know.
He didn't look like he didn't really look black at all. Like he looked like he was sprayed with exhaust and spray paint and like
Jesus
ash. He
Christ.
looked, and his hair was like he looked just like Nightcrawler. If you see Nightcrawler,
Yeah,
but just a little darker. It was wild.
On a less serious note, actually, no, on a regular note, part of the problem too is just like I seen speaking about baiting, I seen a post about one of the police services. I think it was Toronto. I could be wrong though, but they left like skits of bricks out the day before
yeah.
a protest, trying to like promote people to throw the bricks at the building so they
oh
could
yeah,
use, so they could
Yeah.
use lethal force. Like that's part of the problem, you know.
Yeah,
You can't put those bricks out and then they threw the bricks, so now we can whoop their ass.
yeah,
can't-
yeah. A fight, a physical altercations aren't gonna better the situation. It's got to be more being held accountable for murder, basically, and just
Yeah,
and traffic stops that lead to like beating the shit out of someone for no reason.
we gotta fucking talk, man.
Gotta
And then
talk. Communication is
talk.
key.
Yeah,
there needs to be a line discovered to where when officers do their daily jobs, I know learning about all the police duties and everything that they do, I kind of see it both sides of the coin, because there was a video of this police officer and he had walked up to a regular traffic stop and he was walking up to the window, and then like the teenager who was sitting in the driver's seat shot out the window and almost killed the cop. Like, the officer got shot and he almost lost his life because he was doing a regular traffic stop. So there needs to be a line drawn to determine when you see something as a threat as opposed to when you just approach a situation normally.
But like I said before, in the States, I think they always approach it as a threat because of that exact situation you said.
Yeah.
They've seen those videos too. Every cop in the precinct in the States have seen those videos. So they approach every fucking traffic stop like this guy's going to kill me. And that's what leads to some of this behavior as well. So it's got to be, I don't know, get rid of guns, first of all, and then the racism. And then it's a whole thing. It's not just one thing at this point. But racism's just at the forefront, I think.
thanks for watching. Since you're here, why not take the time to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell. Also check out Brush Crew on Spotify, Spreaker, TikTok, and Instagram. And that's all I got.